because this is actually how I feel. Like I'm here talking about how to thrive, but at the end of the day, I feel I'm pretending, and it's not just this, but every time I stand, for example, I serve in Sunday school. Every time I stand in front of the children and start talking about a topic, I feel like I'm the Mr. Know-It-All. I'm going to teach you what to do, but at the end of the day, I'm actually barely surviving. Okay, just to make a distinction between just to make a difference between thriving and surviving. So we're gonna give some examples. John and Mary work at the same company, but Mary is quickly moving up the career ladder, consistently exceeds expectations, actively seeks feedback for improvement, takes on additional responsibilities. She's not just working, she's also building a career, developing her skills and expanding her network. John, always on the brink of getting fired, does the bare minimum required, struggles to meet deadlines, shows little enthusiasm for his role. His focus is primarily on not losing his job rather than on how he can excel in it. Mary is thriving, John is surviving. Okay, let's take another example. Alice and Emma both go to the gym. Emma, she has a structured exercise routine, is mindful of her nutrition, sets and achieves personal fitness goals, whether it's running a certain distance or mastering a new sport. Her lifestyle choices enhances her energy levels, mood, and overall health. Alice exercises only sporadically, has an inconsistent diet, driven by convenience rather than structure. Her approach to her health is more about avoiding sickness than actively improving her well-being. She often feels tired and lacks energy. Again, Emma is thriving, Alice is surviving. Can we try this together? Oh. Sorry. Can you see it?
Look at that.
No. Did you guys open it? All right.
We get this when we click on Michael. That's what we see. Yeah, that's what we see this time.
Okay. Let's try it. Tim and Josh both attend church regularly, serve in their groups. They both pray, fast, give, follow church commandments. However, Tim, the surviving person, can you write down your responses? What do you think he's doing different?
Wait, can you go back again?
Michael's thriving very fast.
Sorry. If you go to menti.com, you can just put the code on top instead of the QR code. Okay. Tim, the barely surviving one.
Yeah, we have to think of
Yeah.
why we think it's a right.
Exactly.
Could you do the question again?
So I gave you examples about people at work, people at the gym. Now these are people at church. What would make one surviving and the other thriving? Tim, the surviving one, what's he doing differently? Surviving is like barely making it.
Rena, don't stand, don't quickly, but don't stand on the wet floor. Come, Rena, this way. On back. Over to under. This way.
Okay, answers are coming in. Distracted, always late, depends on his own energy, bored, duty, gives back, aims to change regularly.
I gave mine. I switched the third.
Okay. Okay. Would somebody like to read the answers? No? Yeah, I think distracted. I think when somebody repeats the same thing that was written, it becomes bigger. So I think distracted has been mentioned more than once. Forced to do it is a big one. Depends on his own energy. Or they're just doing it. Okay. How about Josh, the thriving person who's like shining? What's he doing? Very good. Aims to change regularly, engaged with soul and mind, wants to learn more, disciplined, delighted, inner life thriving. So, these answers are spot on. The one that really touched me was delighted, and I think this is what we want to talk about today. The difference between what's making someone just barely making it and one who's actually like shining and growing is he's delighted in what he's doing. And this is today's talk. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. It's actually the part that really differentiates is delighting yourself in the Lord. When you're enjoying it, when you're enjoying what you're doing, it's not just a task that you need to get done with and like embrace it. This is when things really change. Okay. So, Solomon is one of my favorite characters in the Bible. He's not very famous, and if he's famous for like having everything and going astray. But actually, if you go back in the book of like the second book of Samuel, you're going to find that when Solomon was born, God said, or God, like the Bible says, David, and when she bare a son, he called his name Solomon, and the Lord loved him. And then they took him to Nathan the prophet. Nathan gave him a new name. What's the new name? Jedediah, or Jedediah, however way you pronounce it. And that means actually the beloved of the Lord. There was this relationship that actually started between Solomon and God since he was born. And that's why when God appeared to him in a dream, The Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, "Ask, what shall I give you?" Solomon said, this is actually a part that struck me in the beginning. When God appeared to him and he asked him, "What do you want?" he just answered back. He wasn't taken back, astonished, afraid. There's always something that happens, and then he would start answering. But it's normal because he talks to God a lot. It was nothing. Ask, what shall I give you? What shall I give you? He answered, "You have shown great steadfast love to your servant David, my father, because he walked before you in faithfulness and righteousness and uprightness of heart toward you. And you have kept for him this great and steadfast love, and have given him a son to sit on his throne this day. And now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of David my father. I am but a little child." There's a conversation going. It's not the first time you would ever talk to God. Do you feel this? And then his answer was, "Give your servant, therefore, understanding mind." This is the only thing he requested of God. What did God give him? The answer really pleased God, and said to him, "Because you have asked this and didn't ask for riches or life of your enemies and so on, I give you a wise and discerning mind. I will give you both riches and honor. I will give you a length in your days." The only thing you need with God is actually to enjoy His presence. This is actually all you need. He will give everything else. And I'm sorry, I'm going to be talking about a lot of the characters I personally love in the Bible. It's a bit of a biased choice of characters. But Isaac is another one I really love. He's again not known in the Bible except when he was going to be killed by his father, but then he was left to live. But actually, Isaac is an incredible character. I'm going to give you another story of his life. But before I go in, I'll just say something. In the previous one, when we saw Solomon, he really wanted one thing, which is wisdom, right? But God gave him everything else. Over here, what do you think Isaac is the one thing he wanted, if you read the story before? All right. If you read along the story, Isaac was a peace seeker. He really hated any conflicts. He would go away from conflict like my father wants to kill me. Okay, I'm not gonna oppose him. He wants to. Okay, I'll do it. I don't know who to marry. My father picked one. Okay, I'll do it. He's very easygoing. He doesn't like conflict. Let's see what happens. So Isaac planted crops in that land, and in the same year reaped 100-fold, because the Lord blessed him. He wasn't a great man of knowledge of agriculture. He just reaped 100-fold because the Lord blessed him. The man became very rich, and his wealth continued to grow until he became very wealthy. He had so many flocks and herds and servants that the Philistines envied him. So all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the time of his father Abraham, the Philistines stopped up filling them with earth. Then Abimelech said to Isaac, "Move away from us, you have become too powerful for us." Can you imagine this? The strong one, he's being asked to leave because he's strong. If I'm strong, I would actually push the other people away, but I'm being asked to leave because I'm strong. And what did Isaac do? He moved away. And then he encamped in another valley and settled, and then he started opening the wells that these people had closed, but in a different area. What happened then? The herders of Gerar, the people who lived there, quarreled with those of Isaac and said, "The water is ours." So he named the well Azer, because they disputed with him. And then they dug another well, but they quarreled over it as well. And then he moved on from there and dug another well. But when he dug the last one, and no one quarreled over it, he then said, "Now the Lord has given us rule, and we will flourish in the land." Again, why is he going to flourish? Because he was seeking peace. He was seeking God. It's not about making wealth. All right, so let's go to another story. Sorry, I'm gonna keep on saying stories. Right, another story is Peter when he was fishing. This is I think the first, or sorry,
The rest of the story is beautiful too.
please.
Abimelech came back to Isaac in his new place. Let's be friends.
Yes.
He just kicked me out. All right then, no, everything is fine now. Let's be friends. So he gained the friendship of Abimelech, and he got a lot of water and called it Bir Sheba.
Yes.
So there was plenty of water. So he didn't lose out.
Yeah, he didn't, like, I love him so much. He's very, like, he never loses out, but at the same time, he never causes conflict. Like, he's a man of peace. So, another one is Peter. So, would anybody like to read instead of me just reading the whole thing?
No, you can read.
Jesus saw two boats standing by the lake, but the fishermen. Jesus saw two boats standing by the lake, but the fishermen had gone from them and were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, which was Simon's, and asked him to put out a little from the land. And he sat down and taught the multitude from the boat. When he had stopped speaking, he said to Simon, "Launch out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch." But Simon answered and said to him, "Master, we have toiled all night and caught nothing. Nevertheless, at your word, I will let down the net." And when they done this, they caught a great number of fish, and their net was broken.
So, I was listening to a talk by one of the Udlamai, and he said an amazing thing about this part. He said he was forced to enjoy God's presence. Like, Jesus came and said to him, "I need to talk to these people. I'm gonna go into your boat." So Peter said, okay, like he can't refuse something for like a very famous man. Everybody's coming from everywhere to listen to him. So he said, okay. And he took him into his boat. And he started listening to Jesus giving the sermon, however long it was, an hour, 2 hours. And he's just listening, enjoying. And when Jesus told him, okay, we're gonna take the enjoyment to a different level, it's not just enjoying it with everyone, we're just going to enjoy it, me and you. So he went into the depths, or inside. And then, Jesus actually knows what Peter wants. Peter has been fishing all night and he got nothing. But because Peter accepted to spend this quality time with Jesus, what happened? It says, they caught a great number of fish and their net was breaking. But again, what happened afterwards? Peter got the lesson. So when they had brought their boats to the land, they forsook all and followed him. Like, khalas, I understand now. If I'm with Jesus, everything I want, I will get. If this is the case, then I'm not even going to fish. I'll just be with Jesus because I know fish is going to come. Do you get it? This is the whole thing. If you are with Jesus, if you're with God, you understand how to enjoy His presence, this is it. Okay, so this is like a repetition of what I'm saying. So what do you want? Do you want a partner? Do you want a better job? Do you want a house? Do you want to get rich? Do you want a better future for your kids? Do you want health? Anything you want. Just delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. So here comes like the difficult part, the desires of your heart. Saint Augustine has a very beautiful saying. He says, one labors under bodily blindness. He asks that he may receive his sight. Let him ask it, for God does that. But these things are asked for even by the wicked. This is the desire of the flesh. It's not of the heart. So what is the desire of the heart? He continues. As the desire of the flesh is to wish to have one's eyesight restored, the desire of the heart relates to a different sort of light. For blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Seeing God is actually the desire of the heart. And to be honest, until I started preparing for the talk, I didn't know how much people actually requested it. Moses said, show me your glory. This is something he really wanted. Philip said, Lord, show us the Father, and that will be enough for us. That will be enough. I don't want anything else except seeing the Father. Another one, to be honest, I didn't relate to before. Sorry, not this one after. This one, David said, one thing I have desired of the Lord. Like, I didn't desire anything. I didn't desire to be a king. I desired what? That I will seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in his temple. To behold the beauty of the Lord. That's the key again. This is the one I didn't think of before or relate to, which was Ahaz the Malik, the king. He was going into war, and he was going into the people fighting against him were really strong and much bigger, like a much bigger army. So Isaiah went to him and said, ask a sign of the Lord your God. Ask it either in depth or in the height above. But Ahaz said, I will not ask, neither will I test the Lord. And he said, therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. This sign is actually very different. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. This doesn't relate to anything. Like, I'm going into war, and then I'm going to give you a sign. So what's the sign? Like, will the sky have fire? Is something going to happen? No. A virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and she's going to call his name Emmanuel. The thing about Emmanuel is, it means God is with us. And then God continued and said, and whatever you're afraid of, it shall not stand, neither will it come to pass. So he didn't stop the other one, but he knew that the real sign or the real joy is in God being in the midst of us. Would anybody like to add something? Because I feel I'm just talking and talking. Okay, so what are your heart's desires? When you think of it, God said to David that, or he said when he looked all over earth, he couldn't find someone with the same heart or has the same desires of the heart of David. But me putting myself in David's shoes, what would be my desires? Sorry, I don't want this too small. Is it to see sinners repent? More people knowing God, coming to church? Is it really in me to feel that I want to see people actually go to heaven? I'll tell you something that's it's funny, but it's sad from my side. There's a lady I know, and she works in a hospital, and because she's Egyptian, so she speaks Arabic. So usually they take her not just as a doctor, but if there's a doctor treating this patient, sometimes she would go in as a translator to just explain to the sick person what the doctor is saying. And she works in a very important hospital in the US. So a lot of rich people, especially from Saudi, Kuwait, go to that hospital. So she takes this opportunity that whenever she's in talking with people from Saudi and from Kuwait and from these countries, and she starts preaching about Jesus. And to me, whenever I think of her, I think she's a crazy lady. Just someone is sick and they're dying, and are you talking about Jesus now? Just try to comfort her, and what if her family is there? They're gonna kill you, just think a bit, But then she tells me okay, I might get killed, I might get fired, I can get anything, but this is the last chance to know God. I would be happy if I go in heaven and see them. If this is the last thing I do in this hospital or in my life, I'll be very happy to do it. Again, I don't want to say I still make fun of her, of the way she does it, but to me it's very strange. And I was raised in Egypt, talking about God openly is very, it's a taboo, it's not something I could do. So seeing other people doing it and doing so like happy doing it and not afraid of any consequences, this is really, it really triggers me. So I keep on asking myself, am I filled with God's desire? Because I'm sure what the lady is doing is God's desire. He wants to see all of these people in heaven. If you reach the point to get this desire of being with God in your heart, you can then sing with David and say, like, I was glad when they said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. Like, I was glad when they said to me, let us go. Like, to me, another liturgy, 3 more hours just standing there, or I'm gonna go to listen to a talk, or the fasting begins. Like, fasting 54 days, who can do that? Or 55 days, who's gonna do that? Everything is a burden, and this to me is, I'm really struggling to get past every step. This is like the topic that we're talking about. Are you thriving, or are you just surviving? I will fast the 55 days, but am I doing it happily, joyfully, or am I just getting through it, just like, come on, get it done? He also said, early will I seek you, my heart thirsts for you. Like, I don't think I can even repeat it, like, waking up early just to pray or just to stand in front of God, like, this is tough. And I found your word and ate it. Your words to me were joy. Like, again, the Bible, it's Bible time. I need to get to my chapter. Every day I read a chapter, I'll just get it done with. This is because he actually seeks God daily, and he reached the point where he's really enjoying it. And to be honest, the Bible also talks about why we're not enjoying it. You know the parable of the sower? The one that fell with the thorns? What happened? Exactly. All of the distractions we have in life are the ones that are actually choking our life with God. This is what's actually stopping us from flourishing or from thriving. As long as we can't see the bigger picture of, if we actually are with God, everything else comes, we will always be striving. We will always be surviving. Alright, so now comes the better part, I hope. The solution. The first one is, make time for God. It sounds obvious, but even the disciples who stayed 3 years serving with Jesus every day, when it was prayer time, they slept. And making time with God is again, it's quite difficult, because like people who serve with me in Sunday school, they will know this, because there's this thing that always happens to me. If I ever set a meeting at church time or at Sunday school time, it always gets cancelled. and it was like, it's so funny, even like a few weeks ago, I had a meeting in Birmingham, so like I wore my suit, I went to the train station 9 o'clock in the morning, and then all trains going to Birmingham that day were cancelled. So, like, I'm giving the talk, as I showed you, like the picture of the first guy, I'm giving the talk, and until now I don't get the lesson. Everything I do on a Sunday is always cancelled. I think, Richie, you saw me that day coming to Sunday school wearing the suit, and like, you're looking too fancy for Sunday school. Yeah, and making time for God, you can actually make your own system. So it's good to have this time with God, like you can say that I'm going to pray every day in the morning or at night, or I'm going to read the Bible at 5 p.m. You can make your own schedule, but you can also move around with it. So my father in confession, he knows I probably have ADHD or something. I can't stand still just looking at the wall and praying and closing my eyes. It's not me. So he told me something. He said, how about you write your prayers? Something like a diary. Just get a notebook and start writing, Dear God, and instead of just saying it, why don't you write it down? Because you're using 2 senses, you're going to be more focused, and probably you're going to spend more time. Some people maybe can just like stay quiet, you don't need to talk. Pope Shenouda said this. He said, if you're just sitting in the presence of God, this is prayer. And by sitting in the presence of God, meaning not watching something, just like actually sitting down. Some people would actually listen to a sermon because they're listening or actively being with God in a different way. I mean, whichever way you want, just make time for God. And it's easier said than done. The second one is make everything about God. And I didn't understand this verse before. It says, the light of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye be single, and actually in a different translation it says, be simple, your whole body shall be also full of light. And what's the opposite of simple? Complex. At least in my dictionary. So, a complex thing is when you see many things. But a simple eye is when you see one thing. I can go to work, but I'm working not because of making money, I'm working because of God. I'm married, and not because, I mean, I wanted to get married, but the thing is, I'm serving God.
Good answer, good answer. Sorry, not on the sofa tonight.
But again, because I'm serving God in my house, I'm serving God in my children, I'm serving God. If God is what you're doing and He encompasses everything you do, it becomes a simple eye. It's just something single. It's a single thing you're doing. Your whole life is serving God, whatever it is. And actually, there's a book I started reading, but I always start and I don't finish them. It's called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. Have you ever heard of this book? Yeah. So one of the things in this book is that people have compartments when dealing with God. Like, this is the compartment of work, this is of whatever, this is of whatever. But if you have everything in one big box called God and everything just folds in it, this is actually the only way to thrive. And I'll conclude my talk because I've been talking so much. So the verse says, delight yourself in the Lord and He will give you the desires of your heart. So the delight will make you receive, right? But God is so sweet. Like, He knows that it's sometimes very difficult to start this way. So He gave us another verse. You will receive that your joy may be full. And we can start with this one. And actually, Ababulis told me this once, and he said something, and he was giving a sermon, and then in the middle he was talking about trying God, like asking God for something small, and if it worked, give Him something, like asking for something bigger, and if it worked, give Him something even bigger, and keep on doing it this way. And طبعا أنا فرحوس, I don't know how to translate this, I'm falhus. Being wise, whatever. No, not wise like the good wise, the bad wise. Yeah. So I told him, God said, don't try God. And then he answered back and he said this to the devil. And you being, he said, you being his son, he's going to accept if you try him. Try him with something small. And try him, but like really be honest about what you're trying God in. And He's going to give it to you. And you're going to keep on growing and growing and growing. And this is actually the cycle that you can see here. Even if you started from the receive side by asking for something and God gave it to you, you're going to delight. And when you delight, He's going to give you even more. And when He gives you more, you're going to delight more. And it keeps on going and going and going. And this is how, like for example, Solomon, that's how he reached the point where when he was asked, what is the one thing you will ask for? He said, wisdom. It's him. So, it's just a repetition. And then I'm done. Oh, sorry.
Can you share your stories, Shahid?
Of course, sure.
Maybe you put it on youth meeting group.
Sure, yeah.
They're lovely.
Thank you.